Hi everyone. Let me start by just saying it's fantastic to be here at this great conference. We had a great day before us, and I think we have a great talk in front of us as well. So I hope you all have a great time. So let's begin. I want us all to take 1 minute and think. Really think about the project you are currently working on. This project can be something you are working on with your team members at work. It can be your side project that you're working on your free time, or it can be something that it's not related to code and development at all, but you would like to achieve. Now, let me start and ask you 3 questions about this project. For this specific project, what will you consider a huge success? What you will consider a massive failure? Question number 2. How do you know today that you are on the right path leading you to success? And my last question is, once finished, how can you tell if you nail what you wanted to achieve in the first place? Let us first begin in defining what is actually moving the needle. Moving the needle is break out of trend and make a change in the performance. Break out from the usual expectation and achieve more. Here's a graph that shows the trend and another graph that shows the break in movement and changes in the performance. We are after creating a new direction and changing the current state that we want to go. The direction does not have to look steady at all, but we will still want to make a difference. It can go up without need to change anything in your behavior. But this is not what we are after. We want to break the trend and set a new direction to improve where we want to go. Let's go back and think about the 3 questions I've asked you. Can you tell me that what you are doing today in your project you thought about will break the trend and lead you towards what you're trying to achieve? Do you know your current status? And what will happen if you will stop working on your project altogether? As software developers, we run many projects, moving from one front-end framework to another, replacing our database into a new and shiny one, and creating that killer feature that our competitors just don't have, and we are confident it will give us the edge. But while we are working on it, are we sure we're in the right direction? And once finished, are you sure we got what we really wanted? So, how do you make a difference? How do you move the needle? Projects that had great success follow those 3 rules. They had a well-defined KPI that captured the value they're trying to achieve. They had a challenge yet achievable goal on that selected KPI. And the leader allowed the team autonomy and gave ownership of the plan and the execution on reaching that goal and measured the team by their results. Sounds easy, right? Just follow this and you will win. Well, the end. Thanks for having me and enjoy the rest of the day. Well, no, not really. Sounds simple, right? I bet most of you have KPIs, OKRs, goals of some sort, quarterly planning, year vision, or at least one of those at the company that you're currently working on. And even if not, I'm sure most of you heard about define the KPI, set a goal, and give autonomy to your team. All easy to do in a superficial way that will only lead you to frustration. Unfortunately, to get them right, none of those 3 rules are easy to achieve. And getting just 1 or 2 right merely will not cut it. You will need to nail all 3 of them. Although every one of them must be unique to your project you are currently working on, and of course, no project is 100% the same, I will share some practices that will help you define your KPI better, set the right goal, and some tips on how leaders should lead in this KPI-driven environment. But wait, there is even more bad news. You can get all those 3 spot on, and you will have done everything by the book, but you can still fail. Why? At times, your KPI and goal have nothing to do with your day-to-day work, and you only remember them when you pass and see the stickers the leadership attached to the wall. Many companies have tried it and failed, and the disconnect between the employees and the management never felt so vast. I've been in companies that didn't make it to work and failed. And I've been in companies and advised to others on that matter that nailed it and saw the massive positive impact he had. So in this talk, I want to show you how to really make this work. Not just define the KPI and goal, but how to make it practical. Away from inspirational stickers on the wall and into your day-to-day work, and how to really embrace it. From theory to practice, so you can implement it in everything you would like to change its trend and indeed move that needle. But first, who am I? My name is Rabinovitch, and I'm currently I'm VP of Engineering in Perspectiva, a Walmart company. I'm around 20 years now in high-tech industry. I'm a maker, an engineer, and I held different management position from engineering manager to VP of engineering for the last 12 years. Over the years, I took part in various projects. Some were successful, some were just okay, and some even failed and never ever reached production and faced users. One thing though, I kept doing after every project I participated in, I held a retro with my team and tried to understand why this project was successful in case it did, and why it didn't work well in case it didn't. I began to detect some patterns that helped me increase my team's project success rate and help me achieve more at my personal project, and I would love to share them with you. For most of the talk, I will refer to project you run with your team as a team member, or as an engineering manager, or even manager of managers. However, all those practices that we're going to talk about today can be used in your personal goals and things that you would like to change and in and outside your workplace. So let us begin. What's a KPI? I'm sure that most of you know the term KPI. KPI equals key performance indicators. Those are a set of one or more metrics that help you measure and track what you want to achieve. However, one thing to remember that KPI is sometimes missed. Remember the key in the KPI. This is key. If you have multiple KPIs, that means you have many things on top of your priority. And if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. For your current project, please select only one KPI and aim to improve his metrics and nothing else. Okay, so defining the KPI is the first thing you should think of. Now, how do you find the right KPI that matches what you would like to achieve? Of course, this is unique to your organization, your business domain, and don't forget what you would consider a success. However, there's one thing to remember to help you find the best KPI for a project. The KPI should encapsulate the value you're trying to bring and not the outcome of the value. I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but I will get to it soon. Let us walk through some test cases, examine them together, and for each one of them, define the optimal KPI that serves the value they're trying to achieve and sets standard rules for selecting the most accurate KPIs. Let's start with a personal goal that some of you might have. Getting married or finding one significant other, as she feels that this is a time for them to enjoy a life partner. So the suggested KPI is find one significant other. Why this is not the best KPI? I tell you, it is not measurable. You can't measure it. If I put it on a graph, 0 will represent single and 1 illustrates married. Either you have it or you don't. You can't track progress. You can't see if what you're doing today will eventually lead you to achieve what you're after. Let me suggest a better KPI. The number of hours a week you devote finding and connecting with potential partners candidates. Why this is a much better KPI? First of all, this is measurable. You can count how much time you spend on dating apps, texting with potential matches, actual dating, and more. And you can try to increase this number over time. Well, I am assuming that more time you spend looking, the more chances you will find. Not sure if this is totally accurate, but work with me for this example. I've been married for a long time now, and I have no idea what I needed to be done if I was single. So, what have we learned? KPI rule number one. The KPI should be measurable. Don't settle for a Boolean yes or no, or something amorphous that you just can't measure. I will also add one more rule here. KPI rule number two. It should be clear that the KPI direction is either good or bad. For example, more time spent looking and connecting with potential partners equals good. Less time equals bad. The meaning of the KPI's direction should be obvious. Next test case. You're a founder and a CEO of an audiobook SaaS company, and you want to find a KPI for your team. You select the KPI, the number of subscribers. Why this is not optimal? It doesn't encapsulate the value of your business. If you spend all your money on marketing and get many new subscribers, your KPI metric will fly through the roof and everyone will be happy, right? However, if your product is just not good as your marketing team, your churn at the end of the subscription period will also be in significant numbers. But as long as you spend time on marketing and time and money on marketing, your KPI will not address it. Your subscribers will change all the time and you will not be able to track them. There's another problem with this KPI. Let's say you can only subscribe for the entire year. No trial, no monthly subscription, just one full year. How can you keep track of this KPI in real time or near real time? It takes...
Hey, Eric.
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are some pop-ups in your frame.
Now it's better? Sorry.
Yeah, that's better.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, let me continue. Okay, so we talked about the SaaS audiobooks and SaaS audiobook, and let's go back to the say what is not the best KPI. So there's another problem with this KPI. Let's say you can only subscribe for the entire year. No trial, no monthly subscription, just one full year. How can you keep track of this in real time? It takes you a full year to understand that, Houston, we have a problem. Then it will way too late for you to respond. A user subscribed to your audiobook product, tried it once, it fails them, and then he can't see its value. He never logs in again, and after a year, he cancels his subscription. Wouldn't it be great if we could catch it sooner? A better KPI, the number of unique users that listen to audiobooks per day. Why this is better? This reflects the value of the product and not the outcome. If the user enjoy the product, they will be happy to pay, and the number of subscribers will increase. Increasing this metric on that KPI can come from marketing and user acquisition, or it can come from your product and your engineering team for better user engagement. Also, you can track it daily. If you don't see the drop in the metric, you can immediately react. Maybe it's a bug, perhaps something else is wrong. Or in an optimistic scenario, you deploy the new feature and you can see the metrics go up. You can often track it and monitor the status for better because it changes daily. So, what did we take from this example? KPI rule number 3. Your KPI should reflect the value that you're trying to bring and not the value's outcome. Another important rule. It should frequently change, at max weekly, better daily, so you can track what you are doing for the better or for the worse. React fast and adjust. Let's do another one. A respected journal select your company for the only 75th place as the best companies to work for, and you would like to be on top 5 to attract top talents. You select the KPI. Your company's rank on the journal's chart. Why this is wrong? Simple. You cannot control it. Yes, you can raise salaries, give big bonuses. You can have a full kitchen with various candies, and you might even take the entire company to trip to Hawaii once a year. However, none of those things can directly impact the list the journal is compiling. You don't know what they're after, or even if someone just buy the first places, and you can never reach there. You just don't have control over it, and it can be very frustrating for your team. A better KPI can be the employee satisfaction rate. If you're after employee satisfaction rate, have an anonymous survey once a week and let the company employees rate their work satisfaction. If you're after attracting top talents, work with your recruiters to understand what your company is missing in order to attract them. But make sure your KPI is something you can control and your team can change for the good if you make the right choices. This leads up to KPI rule number 5. You and your team members should be able to influence it directly, with the right choices for the good and for the wrong choices for the bad. Test case number 4, the last one. You're a software engineer manager that encounters a problem. Almost every new feature your team member deploys has bugs. Some small, but some big. And you would like to reduce the number of bugs in new features. So you select the KPI, the number of bugs in new features. How can this be wrong? Well, do you know what's the easiest way to achieve it? The most straightforward way for you and your team member to reach success? Well, just reduce the number of deploys and new features, and even more, don't deploy anything. Simple, right? Everybody wins. Well, except your company. A better KPI, as we all know, if not, please ping me after this talk. Writing automatic tasks can help you find bugs while still in development phase and fix them before they reach production. So a better KPI can be percentage of the code coverage of new features. So it leads to action to write more automatic tests. So your code coverage will increase, fewer bugs will reach production while the team continues to develop new features. So our last rule for selecting a great KPI should lead to action and not staleness. It should drive you forward and push you to the right direction, and you shouldn't have to hesitate for every step. Now that we've spent some time and thought about your project and come out with a great KPI that encapsulates the value you're trying to bring, and you are confident that if you improve the metric on the KPI, you will win and the project will be a huge success. However, many companies and teams manage to define a great KPI for their project, but still can make it work, since they couldn't convert this methodology from theory to practice. In the following slides, I will explain how to make it more practical, how to avoid the pitfall while we start measuring your KPIs, and how to track and monitor it easily. The first thing you should do is think KPI first, goal second, not vice versa. Allow me to explain. Ever made one of those New Year resolutions that sounds a little bit like this? I want to get into fit. I want to enjoy life more. I want my team to be more professional. Now you can ask, what's wrong with that? We have all done it. Let me ask you the same question I've asked you at the beginning of my talk. What would you consider success? How can you track your progress? How would you know once you reach it? Let's take the first example. Let's say you want to get into fit. Let me ask you, what is getting into fit means to you? Is it running a marathon? It is cycle for 3 hours without stopping? It's the ability to lift 100 pounds? Or maybe it's just related to your weight. When thinking about goals and KPIs, first thing people do is they think about a goal they want to achieve. Do the opposite. Think about what you want to change. Think about how you can measure it. This is your KPI. Now, you can attach a goal to it. More on setting goals later on. Now, let's go back to the getting fit goal. Without thinking about what is getting into fit means to you and how you can measure it, your goal is almost like a wish. Not there is something wrong with wishes. However, to be proactive to make your goals, first think about your KPI. Set a goal second. Now, before you start thinking about how to improve the metric on your KPI, measure where you are now. Sounds obvious, right? You wouldn't believe how many times people approach me and say something like, I want to have $1 million. My first reaction will be, okay, what is your current worth? Most people just don't know. Some think they know, but after further thinking, they come up with a different number. Same in software. I want to have 100% test coverage. How much do you have now? Well, I'm not sure. Another example can be the KPI of the SaaS audiobooks company that we just talked about. They're out to measure how many unique users listen to audiobook per day. But if they don't know the current status of this KPI and can't get it because nobody thought tracking this data, how can they set a goal for this KPI? If you're after $1 million, check all your savings, trust funds, and loans and understand how far you are from reaching it. If you're after code coverage, did you consider the backend projects? Did you consider the front-end project, chef scripts, cloud scripts, and so on? Once you know where you really are, everything becomes much easier for you to see where you want to be and improve this goal settings accuracy. If you're not running this project alone, align everyone around it. If you're a CEO, head of division, engineering manager, get your entire team behind it. Explain why you choose this KPI. Try to demonstrate the value it represents for your users and why you must follow it. Explain to your team members why focusing on increasing your KPI metric is the most important thing for them to do, and how much your company and your division or your team will gain from it. Aligning your team members around measurable KPI accepted by everyone is the fundamental for a successful teamwork. Alignment goes both ways. Talk to your manager, share your KPI with him, and explain why this metric can make a difference and why you believe in it. If your manager disagrees with you, remember that sometimes he has just more context with you. Understand why he disagrees, go back to the drawing board, fix and repeat until you are both fully aligned. I often hear things like manage your managers or manage up. I learned that defining and agreeing on a specific KPI with your manager is one of the best ways to have a healthy relationship with him. It provides clarity, focus, and alignment that is hard to reach otherwise. Visualize your KPI as much as possible. One dashboard worth 10,000 words, 100 what is the current status questions, and 50 boring alignment meetings. Save time for you and the entire team. Put it everywhere. Send a daily email or text message to everyone on the team, or for all the stakeholders and anyone else who cares, and share your KPI current metric status with them. This will encourage your team members to take action. If you got screening around the office, have them show your KPI and the current status, and have it refresh automatically from your data source, and save many sync meetings and boring questions. If you're doing dailies, open the dashboard there as well. The more people see it, refer to it, and take it under consideration, the more alignment, commitment, and focus you will get. Yes, you've given a lot of thought, and you're sure you found the suitable KPI. However, things tend to change. I'm sure that the KPI for this conference 2 years ago in a pre-COVID world and this year's conference is a bit different. So things change, people change, businesses change. Don't think just because you gave it a lot of time and thought, it will last forever. Trust me when I say it won't. The KPI should serve you, not the other way around. So reflect on it from time to time and make sure it still suits your needs. And if not, don't hesitate to change it. Following the wrong KPI can be very distracting. So better to replace the KPI from time to time and be more agile than working hard on moving the metric on a KPI that no one cares about. So we all agree that your KPI is super important and you need to do as much as possible to move the metric on it. However, please don't neglect the rest of your indicators. Think of a racing car. Let's say the main KPI for the driver is increasing its speed. However, he still needs to check his heat engine, tachometer, and fuel level. Do the same with your company, your team, or your personal goal. For example, if your main KPI is user engagement, and you have another indicator that tracks the number of minutes your site was down. And let's say in average, it was down in the last 4 quarters, 3 minutes per day, per quarter. Why do you need to track this? If the site was down, well, you will not get any user engagement. And basically, it will hurt your KPI as well. The same as lack of fuel in a racing car. If you're just catching the issue before affects your KPI. On the other side, if your average water was currently like 3 minutes and you don't do anything to improve it because you're not trying to lift the metric on the user engagement KPI, don't be surprised that this quarter your site will be down for 3 minutes as well. Choosing on what to focus on and deciding what not to focus on. If something is your key metric, it doesn't mean you need to ignore all other indicators. Okay, so let us talk a little bit about the subtle art of setting goals. Let's start by asking a naive question. Why is setting goals even necessary? Why setting our KPI just isn't enough? We know the direction we want to take, and we make sure once we walk this path, this will lead us to success. Why do you need a goal? Let's put it on the graph that represents a KPI. Sorry. We will use the test case of our SaaS audiobook subscription again. And we all agree that the KPI for this company is the number of unique users that listen to audiobooks per day. So let's put it on YX. You can measure the current status. And for example, your unique users that listen to audiobooks daily is 10,000 people a day. Now, you're a founder of the company and you want to increase those numbers because it represents the product value. How can you encourage the team members to do that? How you can engage them to action? You set a time-based goal on that KPI. Show them where you want to be after a predefined period. X equals time, dotted until the goal where you want to be. But why must the goal be a time-based? The answer is KPI isn't time-based. However, a goal is. Time makes everything real and drives to action. Think of the time that you said, I want to clean the backyard, as opposed to the time you said, I must clean the backyard by the weekend. Time-based make everything real and drive you and your team to action. I have 3 kids. My house is a mess most of the time. And my wife and I are not the most organized people in the world. She will say it because of me. I will argue differently, but let's leave that aside. And every time we declare we're going to arrange the mess, we either postpone it or find some excuses to do something else instead. Do you know when we work perfectly as a team and become a cleaning and arranging ninjas? I tell you when. Some friends or family are calling and telling us they will come over in 30 minutes. Setting a time frame makes the task real and drive us to action. Same for companies and teams. Let's say Facebook API, sorry, I'm not used to Meta yet, is the number of likes per week. Of course, Facebook wants as many likes as possible. So in Facebook headquarters, they have a big dashboard that tracks the number of likes every week. And everyone at Facebook is working to increase those numbers. Without setting time-based goal, there's no call for action, no drive to move the KPI forward, and it will not engage and only leads to staleness. However, set a goal with a specific time frame, something like by the end of this year, we would like to double the number of likes per week. Putting this goal makes everything real. It drives to action and focuses the entire company around it, and set the success fail bar for the whole company. Now, we all want to be great and achieve as much as we can. Let's say you are building a service that shows video on demand and your KPI is the number of videos people watching for at least 3 minutes. Your current status is around 100 views per week. And you think to yourself, okay, I want to be the best video on demand site in the world. So my goal for the next 3 months is 1 billion views per week. Well, assuming you don't have all the money in the world to spend on marketing, it just probably can't be done. Giving this goal or setting unrealistic goals can be devastating for your team and your company's culture. If the goals you are setting just cannot be achieved, two things will happen. At first, your team will be highly frustrated and will have a sense of failure. It will demoralize everyone by having them feel that everything they are doing is just not enough. But in the long term, the impact will be even worse. People will stop caring. They understand, because you recruited intelligent people, that no matter which goal you set, it just can't be done. Your team will lose faith and will completely ignore it. Another pattern that has short-term benefits, but in the long run will backfire on you, is to think, let's set a goal which is very high, but thinking to yourself that even reaching 50% on that selected goal would be great, and not sharing this thought with your team. This behavior might work for the short term for achieving a current goal, but it will hurt your team members in the long run and will have the same negative effect and implication on your team culture. Easy reached goal is bad as well. Not very intuitive at first, right? You set measurable goals, your team achieves them every time, and everyone is happy, right? What's the problem with that? Well, let me explain. For example, let's say your KPI is your team velocity, and you would love to increase it. Currently, the average per developer is 10 story points per sprint. Now, you set a goal to increase the team velocity in the next 3 months for every developer to complete 11 story points per sprint. What do you think will happen? I tell you, your team members who are currently working hard will just work 10% harder to achieve this goal. Nice, isn't it? No, not at all. I am sure that your team members are currently working hard. Setting a goal that makes them work harder will only lead to longer working hours and more frustration. And more importantly, they will just do the same as before, only put more time and effort. And let's say you want to increase the team velocity by another 10% next quarter. Think about how can this really scale. Now, think of a goal that says, I want to increase the team velocity by 75% in the next quarter. At first, the team will believe that even if they don't sleep at all, it just can't be done. They will never be able to increase it by 75%. However, this will focus your team member to examine the root cause that holds them back and think outside of the box to achieve that goal. Maybe what's blocking your team velocity is deployment takes ages. Perhaps it is the QA team is not responsive. Maybe lack of automatic testing, or the team get constant requests for the customer experience guys. All potential issues that might block your team. And only by forcing them to break out of the old habits and change the way they do things, they can really make an impact and move the needle. Also, I think think about the team that actually managed to achieve this goal. And after 3 months, the velocity indeed improved in 75%. Think about that sense of accomplishment. Think about the pride, how awesome they might feel. Putting easy goals that they will reach every time, you almost rob the sense of accomplishment and satisfaction for them. Now ask yourself, which company would you like to work at? A company that pushes you out of the box thinking and at times make you feel you are doing something outstanding? Or a company that everything is always just fine? So again, let's move away from theory into be more practical. Unfortunately, there isn't a formula that gets a KPI and a time frame and reproduce a well-balanced goal, since many factors can influence. However, here are some tips and tricks that will help you nail the challenging task of finding the right goal. A goal must feel like at start, it just can't be done. If you or your team look at a goal immediately, knows how to achieve it, or the first reaction is, okay, we just need to work harder, it's probably not challenging enough. Aim for a paradigm shift, and not more of the same, just harm. Intentionally or not, we all tend to save buffers, cut ourselves some slacks. We are making compromises with ourselves, like the guy on diet that eats salad all day just to compensate himself buying ice cream paint at the end of the day. No buffers, no prepare for the worst, aim for the best. We had to move the needle and make a change. Stretch goals are great, use them. I hope you understand by now, this is crucial to set the bar high. However, realistic. Setting stretch goals allow you to challenge the team even more while staying realistic with less stretch goals. It hides another vital benefit. The understanding the more you get, the better. Most of the time, a goal is just a milestone in a specific time frame. After reaching that goal in the same time frame will pass, you will still love to continue in the same direction and set new goal for the same KPI. However, beware of the pitfall. Remember that the stretch goals are not the original goal. It doesn't replace it. If your team has achieved the initial goal, celebrate and be happy as the same as the stretch goal didn't exist in the first place. Suppose you're running 3 different projects or running 4 development teams, and each one of them has its own KPI. I don't think setting the same goal for each project will reduce friction. Some believe that setting the same goal, for example, let's say 50% increase in every team's current status, is fair and remove bias. It isn't. It will only lead to frustration and confusion. The difference between the projects are too vast. Too vast for you to set one goal for every team. The team members, the project status, the challenge they will face, the team experience solving those similar problems, and the domain they are facing, they should all be considered while setting the team's goal. No two teams have exactly the same skill and background, so their goals cannot be the same. So really, no size fits all. Yes, it means more work for you, but you will have a better chance achieving what you're after. Once you ask your team member to do something extraordinary and reach a challenging goal, in most cases, they will need to sharpen the axe before they start cutting trees. Maybe they break things before to make them run faster in the future. In that case, it's entirely normal that the progress on the graph will not be linear. And it might take some time before you can see the improvements on the metric. It might even go down a bit at the start, but hopefully, after a short time of sharpening the axe, the metric change will start to look more like a hockey stick. And the last thing, about maybe the most important one. Once the goal is set, the worst thing you can do is wait for the time frame to pass until you look at it again. If you only check the current status after the time frame is expired, you're doomed to fail. You need to check it constantly and adjust your plans if you believe that what you are doing now might not be working. Check the status as much as you can and put it on the KPI dashboard. Also, set alerts to catch spikes in the current status so you will be able to address them fast. And even more importantly, every task you and your team members are planning to take, ask yourself, will it increase the metric on the KPI? Will this get me closer to my goal? And if not, ask yourself why you are doing it, what you are doing. In this part, I will talk about how leaders should lead in this KPI and goal environment. Whether you are a mid-level manager, a senior manager, a technical leader, or even a developer who want to take a leadership position in the future, how leaders should support this methodology and their team once the KPI and the goal are set. As mentioned before, the first thing you need to do as a leader is connect the team to your KPI once set. I assume most of you know the code pattern try. Don't repeat yourself. For those who are not familiar with this pattern, it basically means writing a piece of code once and use it in many places. Don't write the same code twice. Reuse. As a leader and a manager, just do the complete opposite. Explain to your team member once, then twice, and even more if needed. why this KPI is essential to your company and the team and even for themselves. Done right, you will see the excitement and engagement on your team members' faces and make your job easier to motivate them and engage them into action. As leaders, and it doesn't matter if you're a middle manager, senior manager, or a technical manager, please, and I repeat, please don't take ownership on your goals. Your job is to give ownership to the team, which means take a step back. Giving ownership to the team and taking a step back might be the hardest thing for managers and leaders, no matter how many years of experience they have as a managers. If you have recruited right, have you had confidence in your team members, now it's the time to step back and let them face the challenge ahead. Some managers I had a pleasure to work with, most of the time think they know the best, which framework to pick, which color the button should be, or how the user will use the next feature. I don't say there is something wrong with that, and of course, they are right in some cases. However, once you become a manager, a leader, your time is divided between many things: one-on-ones, team meetings, team buildings, long-term vision planning, recruiting, mentoring, performance reviews, high management meetings, and much more things that you need to focus your attention. In most cases, your team members are actually doing the real work. They're on the trenches and understand the complexity of the mission ahead. Having all their time devoted to solving the problem will probably make a better plan and prioritize better than a manager who can only give 20% of his time to this issue. Yeah, I know it's not an easy thing to hear. So once you set where you want to go and how to measure it, if you can give at least 17% of your time devoted to it, it's time to take a step back. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Taking a step back is crazy. Taking a step back is crazy. I'll give my team 3 or 6 months and I might end up with something completely off. Yes, stepping back is not easy. However, let me clarify. Taking a step back is not fade out, not at all. As for progress, have your team share their progress periodically and guide them. You can start once a week and stretch it a bit if you gain confidence. Set proper milestones on the way and check upon them to make sure your team is on track. Mentor your people in one-on-one and team meetings and always offer them support. Okay, so now your team is ready to go and they thought of a plan how to reach the goal and they're all excited and fired up. However, ensure that the team understand that once you empower them with the ownership to get the job done and reach the goal, they are solely accountable for it. Demand it. Don't expect your team, especially if it's a new team, to understand it immediately. Make sure they know it is on them, and they need to consider all the things that might go wrong in the planning phase. Ensure they understand that excuses like, we didn't have reached our goal, but the DevOps team did not deploy my Cassandra table, or we were ready, but the dog ate my unit test, will not be accepted at all. It is on them, if it fails or if it succeeds. Giving the team ownership on reaching their goals and support them as much as possible and demand their accountability. Follow this and everything will be much simpler for you and your team. As a leader, how you can create some culture hacks that will help you establish this culture for your team. Here are some practical guidelines I think you should follow. Measure by the results and not by the effort invested. This is so much easier said than done. It took me so long time to achieve it, and I'm still failing at this from time to time. The results count, period. The results get you where you want to be and what you and your team trying to achieve. And this is what you should give the highest value while evaluating your team members' performance. I don't say other stuff doesn't matter. I genuinely don't. However, results leads to impact that leads to success. Measuring your team members' performance for leaders and managers at KPIs and goals environment becomes a little bit easier. Again, not an easy task for managers and leaders. However, Once you get accustomed to this kind of methodology of following KPIs and goals, extend their ownership and accountability. Share with your team the vision, the direction you are heading, and let them define the KPI and goal. At first, you can start with the goal. Give them the KPI and let them think of a goal they aim to reach. In most cases, they will initially choose conservative goal to make sure they can achieve it. As managers, your job is to challenge it and force them to out of the box thinking. Start by asking those 3 questions. If you give 100% of your time on it, will you increase the goal? If the answer is yes, this will force to talk about priority. Second question. If the goal will be double, triple, 10x higher, what you will need to make it? More people, better framework, fewer context switches? And last question. If you achieve this goal, will you feel proud of yourself and have a sense of accomplishment? If not, it's time to go back to the drawing board. And if the team select a higher goal that you had in mind, this can mean 2 things. 1, they haven't thought about all the issues that we will face along the way. Tackle them with question, have you considered A? Did you thought about B? And so on, and send them back to your thinking. The other option, and they come prepared and they already thought about all the scenarios and they stick with the higher goal. Basically, you're in the best state you can be. However, now you have 2 options. 1, stick with your number, but reduce the time they should invest. Or you can embrace the number and go with it if it serves your company needs. Some people will find the next guideline as one of the Captain Obvious advices. And some won't even understand why I raise it. However, I'm sure that at least once in your career, you worked on something only to realize your boss gets all the credit for it. I bet you can still remember how suck you felt and how demoralizing it was. Don't be this crappy boss. Don't take credit for your team's work. Although in this talk, I'm not focusing on leadership and how leaders should lead and how to motivate your team members, but do remember, finding the right KPI and setting the goals are the first steps in the right direction of your project success. Still, the team members who are doing the hard work is the real heroes, so they deserve the credit for it. Celebrate success. And I can't stress it enough. Don't forget to celebrate a reached goal. Our work is never done. Once finished on a project and achieving the goal, a new one will be knocking on our door and we will rush start working on it. Always too much to do with a little amount of time. However, stop and celebrate. If this project you are working on with yourself, go and do something you always wanted to do and make this day memorable. If it's your teamwork, if this is something that you work with your team on, celebrate success will give everyone a sense of accomplishment and set the bar higher for future projects and provide real meaning for all the team's hard work. Make stupid t-shirts, hats, stickers, go and drink, sing karaoke, whatever. It will have a massive positive impact on your team's culture. Okay, allow me to summarize. Moving the needle is not easy. Making great things never is. However, we will never stop trying to improve our situation, whether it's a personal goal that we finally want to achieve, or it's a project we're working on with our team members. Or even if you have an excellent idea for a shiny new startup and you're about to conquer the world. Hopefully, this talk helped you, this journey, make a little bit clearer and more focus on what matters to you. Remember, the KPI should be measurable. Don't settle for a Boolean KPI 0 or 1. You should be able to track its progress over time and make sure you're in the right direction. It should be super clear that the metric on the KPI changes. It indicates good or bad things. This is not the place to be vague or raise questions. The KPI should reflect the value you're trying to have and not the outcome. Earnings are the outcome of a great product. Fewer PagerDuty's alerts at night is the outcome of proof of quality of design, code, and testing, and so on. Your KPI metrics should change frequently. It should change often. So you will be able to see the impact of your doing fast, so you can react accordingly. And you must have ability to move the metric. If it can be moved because it depends on someone else's doing, replace it with a KPI you can control. And the last thing to remember, your KPI should drive positive action and not fear or staleness. Set a challenge goal on the KPI you have selected. It might scare you at first. However, you don't want to work hard and feel like you're not progressing but standing in the same place. We want progress, not motion. Before you start, check the current status. Where you are now, same as the person that wants to lose weight, first jump on the scale to check how much is currently weights. Aim high, don't save buffers. Doing this will only open the gate for many kinds of excuses. Again, aim high, track it, and make sure you're in the right direction. But don't be afraid to change tactics if you see the plans that you thought about initially just won't get you into your destination. And if you're a leader and you have faith in your team members, align everyone around the KPI and give your team members ownership on reaching their goals. Step back, give them room to come with a solution. They will at times surprise you. Give them ownership on the problem, but demand their attention and accountability and offer them support along the way. Once they are done, measure them by their results and not by the amount of effort they put in, the number of nights they spent in the office, or if they make other people laugh. The results count. And if they pull through and really did a remarkable work and achieve their goal, let them have all the credit for that. They did all the hard work. You just pointed in the right direction. And of course, remember, you and your team have done something extraordinary. Don't let it just fly by. Take the time and celebrate it. This is what we do. Okay. This is it. Thank you again for coming to my talk. I truly appreciate it, and I hope it will help you reach everything you've dreamed of. Any questions and comments, feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to hear from you. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.